for me, it's like you like people. I like to do business with people I like. You know what I mean? It's really not more complicated than that, at least for me.
Go Grizzlies, OU. Attorney bound.
Are they an attorney?
Yeah,
They're an
attorney. Attorneys. Right. First time in 12 years we've been there, man. 14 seed.
Bracket buster.
Nice.
Taking on Kentucky. We're going to slam them in about an hour. Calling it.
Hey everyone, welcome back to the BDO Show, a podcast for passionate BDOs wanting to level up their game with advice and stories from battle-tested BDOs. I'm your co-host, Emily Detour, and I'm here with my fellow co-hosts, Alan Peterson, Chris Hackney, Sterling Birdsong, and Ryan Kroge. Thank you for being with us, and before we get started, we always want to remind everybody to like, subscribe, share with your friends, and if you have any topics or suggestions, throw those over to the bdoshow@gmail.com. BDOs. Have you ever had a borrower bring in like a brother-in-law to do their life insurance? Doesn't end well, does it? We've all been there. When you require life insurance on your SBA loan, it's critical that you bring in a company that specializes in getting these policies in place for the SBA loans. The last thing you want is for life insurance to be the holdup. We all know that's a rookie mistake. SBA Protection Quick Close Life Insurance is the fastest, easiest way to secure the insurance protection that your borrower needs for their SBA loan. Their process is simple, hassle-free, and only takes a few minutes of your borrower's time. No lengthy paperwork, no complicated forms. They even have programs that don't require labs or doctor records for approval. And best of all, you will have the collateral assignment back in less than 24 hours. It's a no-brainer. Go to sbaprotection.com for more information or email Adam Bergen at adam@sbaprotection.com. So today we're going to be exploring the topic of third-party vendors, and I'd like to invite Sterling to kick us off.
All right. Thank you, Emily. So, I want to talk about third-party vendors today. Obviously, these are very important people in the process for us. I'm talking about your attorneys, talking about your business appraisers. I'm talking about your real estate appraisers, your environmental specialists, and also your life insurance folk as well. I think everybody who's done an SBA loan understands it really takes a village to get you from start to finish. And they may think that it's all internal and all inside of the bank, but you don't really realize that these third-party vendors are absolutely crucial in getting your loan from start to finish. So I wanted to talk to you guys about third-party vendors today and how much say do you actually get in who you get to use as a third-party vendor. Ryan, why don't we start with you?
So it kind of depends. It depends on which third-party vendor we get to have that choice with. Obviously, with appraisers, with the new FIREA laws that came after the recession in 2008, they changed a lot of how us as salespeople, BDOs, are able to have contact and communication with appraisers. So we don't get to choose appraisers at all. However, we do get to throw appraisers we don't want to work with up on a list, which I have probably 3 or 4, mostly national appraisers that just must think Detroit is just a black hole. Because every time they come out and they appraise a building out in this area, they drop it about 20 to 25% of what it should be worth. So
do you think it's the dumpster fires that do that, or what do you think is the reason for that?
Well, that might have been the case back in the day, but I think it's because being Metro Detroit, and being that the Midwest is the Rust Belt, Detroit's got to be that big old belt buckle for the Rust Belt. We've just been around for so long. We started the Industrial Revolution. So I guess a lot of national appraisers, when they think Detroit, they have a picture in their head of just abandoned warehouses and industrial buildings, when now, at least over the last couple of years, that's no longer the case. But it's frustrating when you get these national appraisers that have that, negative connotation with the city and the area. So if I can't choose an appraiser, I at least put a list together of the appraisers I don't want them to send the bids out to. Other than that, we pretty much have the choice to use whatever vendor we want as long as it's approved by the bank. Environmental due diligence, business valuations, we get a choice to choose who we want if they're approved. So that's always nice.
I think that it's nice too when on that topic, right, of our third-party vendors, when I have something where I've got a couple good options, I like to offer up a few different options if I can. But also I like supporting brands and companies that support, our missions, right? So I like using some of the vendors that sponsor this show, this channel, and the Art of SBA lending very often are some folks that I'll actually use in real life, right? And I figure that they support us here. And so I'll just try to throw them a little action there as well, right? Because at the end of the day, for me, a lot of the vendors offer a similar experience, just being transparent about that.
What about you, Him?
Do I have a say-so in vendors that I choose?
Yeah. How much say do you have in the vendors that you work with?
Well, we do, and I haven't ordered or engaged in a while, but we do sort of use our CRM system, which we shouldn't. It should be an LOS system, or an LOS, but we engage, and it's kind of a blind process. So we don't have in our shop much say so on who we choose. You can choose based on turn times and experience, and they kind of snip it or redact who the actual appraisal firm is. And they give you turn times, cost, and kind of their experience. If it's like an assisted living facility, how many have they done in the last 36 months? They'll give you that. They'll give you their turn time and the cost. Then you make your decision based upon that.
Don't think we didn't hear that humble brag about you not having to put in a third-party report in a while there, Chris.
I'm realizing I'm very useless around here. I was trying to do, like, Hannah was out, and I was trying to do a lot of things by myself, and I was not able to.
Yeah, I mean, I think in reality, though, one thing I enjoy about the bank that me and Chris are at is that outside of the real estate appraiser, which Ryan hit on earlier, due to FIREA laws, we aren't allowed to know who those people are because of the fear of collusion. But outside of that, attorneys, business appraiser, environmental specialists, and life insurance, I have a say in all of that stuff.
Right.
And that is extremely important to me because at my last bank, I did not have a say in any of that stuff.
Right.
And, you start to build a tribe over time externally as well as you do internally. And so I feel like I've built my external vendor tribe over time. And it's been one of the keys to my success. And, I would even take it one step further and say that, we also have people who we even will refer business plans to as well. Right. So that's one more person that you add to the tribe. But you need to always have a guy for just about everything. My attorneys, I used to have two. Now I have one that I work with primarily, and he's fantastic. Business appraiser, I have one that I always work with, LCG Advisors. That's my go-to.
Eddie Martinez.
LCG. Yeah. Can we tell the story about LCG and how we became a fan favorite?
We love a good story time.
Is that allowed?
I'll take that.
So we see this nice, sweet young lady.
And by the way, before you get started, anybody that is a vendor out there, this is a real example of how to, it's cold hitting my LinkedIn, asking to talk to like the decision. That's not how you do it. Being cool on the road and making, genuine connections 100%. Is how you do it. So with that, Chris, bring us to LCG, will you?
Sponsoring the show also helps. Just throwing that out.
That definitely helps, which they should cut a check.
Adam Bergen got life insurance leads from me from that. Holler.
Adam who? No, just kidding. No, Adam's a great guy. For the record. We go to a Flagel event. Nice young lady's there. She's like, I'm with LCG. And at the time, we were working with another company. I won't mention their name on the podcast. And me being not so polite, I proceeded to start a chant with the other company's name. And it grew, the chant, other people joined in, and this poor sweet lady is standing there, and there's 10 of us chanting the other business valuations company, XYZ BizVal, whatever their name is, right? So we're chanting it, and she's just like turning red in the face. Oh, this is terrible. Why do we do this to her? And the other company gave us these nice little battery power banks too, and we're waving them in her face.
Which I never got mine, by the way.
Loyal to the soil, we'll never switch out. Which is funny. That's the origin story. She took it like a champ. She emails us after, hey, let's go to lunch. Let's hang out. You guys are hilarious.
Oh, my God.
Went to Ocean Prime, connected. I like this gal. We gave her a shot. They've done a great job. They're more responsive than that other company. Cost is a little bit less as well. So she actually proved herself after getting her shot. And then ever since then, it's just the rapport that we have. We go to lunch with her probably quarterly, if not every other month. She just came off maternity leave, and she's like a close friend. And that's just the difference between having a vendor partner and actually building like a partnership and a relationship with your vendors. There's levels to it, right? I could go and find any valuation company and say, hey, give me a valuation here. But when you build rapport with your vendors, if something's off, you can't totally influence them. You can have a conversation with those vendor partners and say, hey, what'd you see here? Or walk me through how you came to this value and build that rapport. Now, you can't do that with appraisers as much, but BizVals and other environmentals, you can kind of build that relationship with them. So
yeah,
shout out to Katie Martinez.
Obviously we have our
Katie
favorites
Martinez.
over here. Shout out to Katie Martinez and LCG. Obviously we have our favorites over here at Bay First, but I'm curious for the first internet crew, do you have your favorites, and would you like to shout them out by name? I mean, we want to know who these people are that deserve to be recognized.
We definitely have.
We got Peak, right?
Peak,
and,
Ryan Hutchins.
I brought LCG over here.
Yeah, we love Peak over here.
Ryan Hutchins is awesome.
He's amazing. Yeah. I like the fact that he'll call the BDO if he doesn't understand something, if something doesn't make sense on, the information that he's been given, instead of just letting it sit there or trying to talk to somebody else. Just go straight to the source. So Ryan's on point, man. He has an amazing crew. They always come through quick, 5-day turn time at the most. I tell my people to only order through Peak for my stuff.
Is it me, or have business valuations, the time to return them, gotten so much faster because there's so many more competitors in market? Like 5 years ago, a BizVal would take you 2 to 3 weeks, and sometimes, we're waiting on the BizVal. Now you order BizVal on Monday, it's back Friday.
Well, I think a lot of that is too that technology has grown so much over the last decade that they've been able to build in so many models, and they have so many different valuators on their staff that know certain industries that they could just pop up information from industries, from deals that they've done in the past. I mean, for example, one of the reasons why I like using Ryan is that he's done probably hundreds of liquor stores for me. Mm-hmm. So he knows what a liquor store in Detroit looks like, what it smells like, how it operates. He knows all the margins. Mm-hmm. He knows everything about them. So he can pop one of those out in just a couple of days just by looking and digesting the numbers.
Yeah, Peak is great. His whole staff is strong too. I think that's it too. Like you get close with people in the organization and then their team, and like all the home services businesses that I do for acquisitions too last year, right? Like they were like, okay, another Allen, plumbing deal, boom, 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 boom. And they're just, like you say, Chris, it's ordered on Monday, Friday, it's done and internally reviewed and accepted. You know what I mean? And that's remarkable. So we love Peak, and those guys are great. So shout outs to those guys. And I do have my Katie Martinez plugged in with the internet now too. So we do use LCG over here as well.
There we go.
And I think so over at the internet for environmental due diligence, we do have a third party that orders them for us and reviews them for us and kind of acts as our environmental due diligence back room for the bank, which at first, so Michigan, I'll just put it out there. Michigan, when it comes to environmental, is the redheaded stepchild of the country. And yes, I can say that with a red beard. I am ginger affluent and ginger adjacent. So I have the ability to
ginger adjacent. I love that.
But
ginger adjacent is good.
It is. Oh man, and I'm allowed to say that with the hard R too. So with the ginger. Having them in the backroom staff.
It's okay. I have ginger friends.
That's okay. There you go.
Ginger friends.
Sterling has his ginger card too.
I'm not touching this.
Smart me either. We're so here.
But it's great with environmental because Michigan is so weird. It's so odd. And because we are the belt buckle for the Rust Belt. When we first started working with them, they would order all these national vendors to come and do all the phase 1 and phase 2s in the area. And they didn't come out very well. So I got a little frustrated, but all it took was me picking up the phone, actually talking to the people and saying, hey, you understand how Michigan is. Can we hire just Michigan-based environmental companies from this point going forward? And I gave them a list of about 5 that I've worked with in the past, and things couldn't have been better. Primarily because when they come out and they recognize that there's going to be a wreck on the phase 1, they already have their due diligence pulled from the state of Michigan to really kind of narrow down how that phase 2 is going to have to look. Whereas national vendors, if they're not familiar with the state of Michigan, it's going to take them forever to kind of figure that out, and they're going to fumble through the whole thing. So it's nice to, even if you don't have the choice of contacting them directly, if you have a vendor who does and have that relationship with them and kind of educate them, if your state or if your area or the type of deals that you do are a little bit different than what they're used to, that's critically important. Because I'll tell you what, any environmental due diligence company that comes and looks at the state of Michigan, they must just think that the city of Detroit glows at night. Because I swear everyone thinks that every site is a lust site. Every site has orphan tanks. Every site has some type of chemicals just festering in the ground. It's unbelievable. And
that's the main thing when it comes to those environmental companies is that you just want a company that's going to give you a fair shake when it comes to a phase 1 versus a phase 2. You don't want a situation where you feel like a company is always looking for an opportunity to go to a phase 2.
The cash
because
grab.
If you're looking hard enough, you're going to find it. Right? I mean, anyone can draft a phase 1 any particular type of way that they would like to, so that it needs further action, right? Which, for those of you guys who are not in the know, a phase 1 can cost you a couple $1,000s, maybe, somewhere in the $3,000 to, $4,000 range or so. A phase 2 can cost you 10 to 15. And so obviously it's a much bigger financial burden on your customer. And obviously it's a much bigger financial incentive for the environmental company. So what you really want is somebody who is just going to be fair with you. Sometimes it's going to go to a phase 2. Sometimes it should go to a phase 2. That's normal, but you just want to make sure that whoever you're working with is not always looking for the cash grab. That's why I always use Robert Becky in land science.
Quite frankly,
singer, by the way. I use him for
and he's a great singer as well, by the way.
Yes,
he is.
Quite frankly, if it's within the city of Detroit boundary lines, I just always assume there's going to be a phase 2 recommended one way or another. So I just set it up that way.
That's something that bothers me, though. Certainly, you pointed it out. I just felt like certain environmental companies were chasing a phase 2. I've had properties where the adjacent property or the neighboring parcel up the road, because it was downstream from the property I was financing, they would say, well, there's no record of that underground storage tank being removed in 1945. So we need a phase 2. Do you really need that phase 2 for that? Or are you looking for an extra 10 grand in your pocket? And there are certain companies who are more prone or inclined to do that than others, I noticed. And I stopped using those environmental companies that were always kind of not giving you benefit of the doubt, or your borrower's benefit of the doubt, and really just saying, well, we got to go straight to a phase 2. Not even really having a conversation with you or your borrower, or doing the extra research to determine if a phase 2 is actually required. And it just felt like they're just looking for more money, because they're running a business as well, right?
Well, and that's where the money is too. The money's in the phase 2. The phase 1 is a ton of research, ton of man hours, and it's a very competitive field. So they have to be, you have to have a price point at a certain amount. So really the money that they're going to make to increase their margins and keep their staff the way it is try to go to a phase 2. And there are a couple companies here in the state of Michigan that I've told our management company, we will not use. We are not going to touch them because it's guaranteed a phase 2 every time.
What about site visit vendors? I know we had a whole episode on BDOs going to the site visit, but if you have to send a vendor, how does that work out with you guys?
I don't
know anything about it.
Yeah.
Site visit,
and that's a good thing. Site visit vendors should be seen and not heard. Let's be honest.
Just like children.
They need to, and we mean
especially
that with all due
ginger
respect,
children,
obviously. And we just want to make sure that the property exists, that whatever needs to be done was done correctly. The only time you really see a site inspector really come into play is in funding, typically when they're actually doing like construction, and they're making sure that the GC is not getting ahead of the money. That's certainly an important piece of it. But in terms of someone pulling up just to make sure a building exists, it's never held up a closing for me. One thing I think that we should potentially talk about is maybe attorneys. I think that really that's your most important third party vendor. And, I have 2. I know I said earlier I have 1. Really, I have 2 that I use. Used to have 3. I went down to 2.
Name drop.
And I'm going to name drop Paul Rush. He is a good friend of mine.
Paul Rush we trust.
And Paul Rush we trust, absolutely. And also Scott Oliver, who is also a fantastic.
Not that other Scott Oliver, for the record.
Right.
Not the one that was in the news.
Not the one.
Not that one.
Yeah.
No, Scott Oliver and Chandler of Lewis Caps.
Oh, yeah.
That's a Scott Oliver.
Right. Caps. Yeah.
Those are 2.
Hey, Gabby's solid over there too.
Yeah,
man. That
Gabby's
whole team
solid.
that we work with
They're phenomenal.
Yeah, and and guys, we could gatekeep.
Good.
We really could gatekeep our attorneys because
this is free
the
game.
last thing
Right.
this is really free game because the last thing you want is your attorney to start getting too busy.
Right.
You got to find another one.
But what's good about a lot of these attorneys is that they do remember who put them on, so they'll keep us number one, right? Yeah,
exactly.
But we love
Sterling,
Lewis and Cass as
will.
well. And
Who'd you drop and why'd you drop him?
So the third one, so the one that I dropped, obviously I won't mention that name, but
man, I thought this was a podcast.
We can't do that. But actually, no, it was because there was just too many mistakes, constant mistakes over a long period of time. Eventually, it wasn't even so much me that wanted to get rid of them. It was even more so the bank that.
Everyone else in this bank says
no. I mean,
they're not good.
Yeah, I mean, at a certain point, it's like when the people are telling you that it's not a good fit, then it's not a good fit. I mean, I'm not trying to go against the grain and make it to where if I assign an attorney that I get an automatic dread from my closer and from my packaging team, like, oh, we got to deal with so and so. That's not what you want. That's not going to help your deal get to the finish line. And so, I don't want to fight the good fight for my third party vendor, just to be completely honest with you. It doesn't seem like something I should necessarily have to do. So I actually, Chris, we've had a couple of attorneys that the bank has gone away from using. What is the reason why we've gone away from using those two in particular?
One, I can't tell the story because he is an attorney and it's a pretty dark story, so I don't want to disclose that. That's for Patreon. It's very specific. Yeah,
that's for Patreon.
An attorney. Yeah, that's for Patreon, paid content. But usually when we do drop attorneys, it is for the most part errors. The things we do in SBA, having outside counsel, it's to protect our guarantee and protect our closing. If you're making errors, we're depending on you. The borrower's paying you. We finance that cost into the loan. Usually it's passed on to the borrower. But we're hiring you to protect our bank and the transaction itself. Not the transaction, but the loan transaction itself. If you're not doing that, then what the heck are you doing? So we usually drop people because of errors and their performance. Rarely do we drop attorneys because they're slow. If they're slow, we might just send them less volume. We might send them a smaller deal, right? That's moving slow already. So it's not necessarily about your velocity or your pace. It's more about what are the errors and mistakes that you're making. Now, if you become non-responsive or combative, then that's another reason to just get dropped as well, too.
What about over-lawyering?
Yeah, that's what I was just going to, I would encourage people to often, you don't have to work with the cream of the crop SBA attorney. We all know their names. We see their newsletters. You don't have to work with them to be a good SBA lender or to get your loan closed in a certain manner. And oftentimes those shops or those firms will have the paralegals, or you're not working with the brand name, right? You're not working with the main guy or gal at that attorney or at that firm. You're working with the paralegal who is going to over lawyer, and the cost is going to be exorbitant.
We know
how
smart you are, right?
Right.
Like we get it.
Right.
Like you're smart. Like you don't need to beat that. You don't need to beat up this email and this list. If the bank's good, then we're good. I get it. You know what I mean?
And you have
don't
to remind
die
them we're on
hill.
the same team. We are on the same team. Don't fight me on a
Protect
loan.
the guarantee, but yeah, like
right. Same team here. So you have to sometimes remind the
ultimately
attorney.
It's the bank that makes the decision, right? The bank is their client. And so, they have to advise the bank and they have to guide the bank to make sure that they're making good, sound decisions. But really, at the end of the day, it's the bank who's taking the risk, right? So they have to say, hey, here's where the risk is. Here's where you could potentially get hurt. And then they have to leave it up to the bank to make that decision ultimately.
Those are what the best attorneys do and how they frame any potential issues they see, just in that manner. Anyone else doing anything else?
Yeah, I just want to do another name drop. It's more of a local name drop, though, because the majority of my loans are done here in Metro Detroit. There's only one title company I will ever use, and that's Birmingham Title. They're located right here in Metro Detroit. They are run by Peter Halliboo and his sister, Liz Castleman. They're phenomenal. And one of the best benefits of using a law firm over and over and over again, and then using a title company over and over and over again, this title company is owned and run by attorneys. They not only understand real estate transactions, but they understand goodwill transactions, inventory. They understand the ins and out of business acquisitions. And so Lewis and Caps, when I get Chandler or Scott on any of my deals, they know Peter, Schammel, and Liz very, very well. And they all talk the same language, and it makes for the most smooth closing that I've had. And so even when I've got a seller that wants to use their title company, I'll do a split closing. I'll require that we use for our lender policy that we use Birmingham Title, because I know my attorneys and the attorneys that own Birmingham Title are all going to have the same goal in mind. They're all going to speak the same language, and they both know how each other works. So it makes it so much quicker and so much easier. So that's my local shout out, Birmingham Title.
Nice.
And they can also do title work in Florida too. Just saying, guys.
We have predominantly Florida people here, so that's great.
Birmingham.
So speaking of your love for this title company and how they communicate with your lawyer, has that ever saved one of your deals? And can we talk about how maybe some vendors have saved the day in terms of maybe something was going to go a little bit sideways and they were like, oh, no, we got you. We figured this out on the back end or the front end.
Yeah, I have one. I had it's like a $3 million acquisition of a plastic surgery center in Tampa here locally. It was a young guy and trying to work. His mom was a investment advisor, and the old story of my brother's doing my life insurance. Don't worry, I got this. So she knew somebody, and everything's going according to plan. We're closed, and I was kind of younger in my career and didn't really understand that how life insurance can kind of throw things off the rails and just, oh, it'll be fine. And we get to it, and he needed I think a $2.5 million policy, but he was young, shouldn't be that hard to get. And we were not getting it. We were nowhere close. And the seller was getting a little bit anxious, and there were some backup buyers that the seller actually wanted to sell those backup buyers anyways to begin with. And so I called up my man, Ben Copeland. I think he'd reached out to me cold a couple of times. And I'm like, Ben, I need $2.5 million of life insurance
tomorrow.
Yeah, no, it was 3 days. I said, I got 3 days. You could just tell me absolutely not, kick rocks, or you could save the day. What are your options? What do you choose? And he got it done in 2 days.
That's awesome.
Ever since then, I have only used Ben Copeland from LifeEase to the death.
I've only used LifeEase essentially since I've been here as well, and
our entire bank, fantastic. I think, uses LifeEase for the most part because of that.
So
yeah, we pretty much all do.
It's funny you bring that up. So I like to use a different life insurance vendor. My life insurance vendor of choice is the Bailey Group. I love Charles Bailey. I've known him for a very long time, and he's been trying to get me to use his product for forever. And I finally gave in about 10, 12 years ago, and he's just been Johnny on the spot. But one of his people that he uses for P&C insurance, for property insurance, hazard insurance, does nationwide, and that's Briar Greaves. And I don't know if you guys have ever used them, but I was just introduced to Michael Salento 2 weeks ago at our SBA summit down in Fort Lauderdale. I've never met the guy. Didn't even know that we had this national vendor, and he saved a deal that's actually closing tomorrow, a liquor store. As we know, whenever you get somebody buying their business for the first time, they always want to use their people, right? And so he wanted to use his insurance agent. Well, his insurance agent was more of a residential insurance guy and a car insurance guy, really didn't dabble too much on commercial, so had no idea how to write a DRAM insurance policy. And for those of you who don't know, DRAM is liquor liability insurance. And so we were getting down to tomorrow was literally the cutoff for the purchase agreement to close. And about a week ago, I just broke down and say, look, you got to call my guy, Mike. You got to go through him. He knows how to get this insurance done. He finally broke down, called up Mike, and Mike had it done within less than a week. Whole entire policy. Bundled it all together. The building, business, business interruption, DRAM, everything you need, workers' comp, all that stuff was done within a week, bound, and we're closing tomorrow. So he did save this deal from a very potentially ticked off seller for missing the closing date. So big shout out to Mike. Good job.
What would determine, what would be a determining factor for you guys to onboard a vendor? We already talked about, what was her name that he met on the road? And he chanted her.
Katie Martinez.
I brought Katie. I brought her over here to the internet because I love her hustle. I totally respect the way she goes about generating her business, the way she operates on the road, her team, everybody over there. You know, for me, it's like you like people. I like to do business with people I like. You know what I mean? It's really not more complicated than that, at least for me. I know they do a great job too. I'm sure a lot of companies do a good job, but I just respect her hustle. You know what I mean? And that goes such a long way with me because I know what it's like.
I respect whoever can run up the biggest bar tab with me. That's what I respect.
And you have to build a connection, right? There's so many vendors out there that we get it all through LinkedIn or email. Hey, use my such and such company, use my company for this. I said, well, chances are I already have a vendor that's doing a good job and a good service for me. I'm probably not going to switch, but maybe reach out. Hey, can we go to lunch? Or I see you'll be at Nagel or this conference. Let me get you a drink. Let's connect. And then I'll think, oh, this person's actually pretty cool. Next deal I have, maybe it's a smaller one. Maybe it's, I don't know. Let's give such and such a shot. I met them at Nagel. They were pretty cool. That's how you open the door for the vendors out there.
Yeah. People do business with people that they like. Right. And I think that is really a common theme across all four of us here on this call that are BDOs. I don't think that any of us really approach being a BDO exactly the same way, but I think that we're all genuinely likable people. I think that we all go out and we meet with people. We take them out for drinks. We take them out for lunch. We meet for, happy hour dinner, whatever it is with people. And I think that we are friendly enough that people just like us. And because of that, they refer business to us. And because of that, we're able to get a lot of deals closed. So, I mean, it's the same for vendors. I'm going to refer to people that I'm comfortable with, that I have a good rapport with, that I know we're going to treat me the right way, that I'm going to treat the right way, are going to also treat my customers the right way. And, this is such a small ecosystem that we live in as SBA lenders. If you're not doing right by people, it's going to spread quickly. And so, a lot of the people that I work with now are people that I had already known about before I began to start working with them. It's people who I already had heard were good at their job, who I already know were going to not try and get to a phase 2 unnecessarily, who I knew were going to be quick in life insurance because Chris told me that they were quick in life insurance. So, when you get your foot in the door, first of all, it starts with people liking you. Second of all, it's execution and actually doing your job extremely well. That's what's going to keep you around.
Is there a type of vendor that you dislike working with the most from like start to finish of a deal? Whoa.
Yes.
Whoa.
We have a vendor that
great guy for the record.
I'm not going to use any proper nouns. I'm not going to use any proper nouns. And I just
they
yes. What? So I don't know what their pronouns are, but I won't use their proper full nouns, their actual names. But we have a vendor that we have to use for. I do a lot of line haul trucking companies. So when you do an acquisition, you have to transfer titles, and it could be quite a bit of titles. And there's a vendor that we use that charges an outrageous amount of money. And I mean an astronomical amount of money to take these titles, place our lien on them, and then file with the respective state. Something that I know I can do, or even an attorney can do for less than an eighth of what they're charging. And if you're going to charge that much, at least be expeditious about how you do it. Because I've closed trucking loans that it's taken 3-4 weeks, sometimes months, just to get those titles back. And that's not good. But they're our vendor, and quite frankly, they're one of the only vendors that does this stuff nationwide. And they do other stuff for us too, like lien searches and what have you. But they're just expensive. They don't always do the job right. And it's frustrating. But right now our hands are tied. So I try to get ahead of the curve. I try to set expectations up front. And I try to, number one, I try to see if we can use another vendor, which is in the works. But I try to get that stuff and that transfer done early so that it matches our closing so that they can get no business interruption. But for right now, we kind of have to deal with it. We have to use it. But at least I know what their lengthy turn time is going to be and that they're going to charge an arm and a leg. But I think every bank right now kind of has to use them until a competitor comes into the market.
It was a nice little switch up not to bring in underwriters into the conversation. We switched it over to vendors today. So that We love our underwriters.
We
Because we love our
underwriters.
underwriters. All our underwriters.
I was going to
Love our
say
underwriters.
that if you are a new vendor or you are a new BDO, make sure you reach out to these guys if you have questions about anything or if you want to know who you are that we've talked about. No, I'm just kidding. But
Or to sponsor the show.
yeah, to sponsor the show.
Right.
But if you see a lender at the show, like one of these guys, walk up and say hi or just introduce yourself, because clearly this is how it works on the road. And cold calling, the emails, the first challenge Alan ever gave us on our very first episode was to just get yourself out there, send emails and introduce yourself. But I did want to thank you guys for the episode today. This was great. Great information for our new BDOs and existing BDOs, new vendors, existing vendors. So thank you for being with us today. Go ahead and shoot some topics and suggestions over to the BDO Show at gmail.com, and we'll catch you all next time. Thanks.